why would the military be advising the government, as the Prime Minister said yesterday, to go with this package? Is it because the government's saying you've got to do all of this within your funding envelope? Is that why?
Yeah, I think I mean, let's be frank, and we've spoken on your program before. The Defence Strategic Review was a pretty sound document, pretty sound strategy, but strategy without resourcing, isn't real. And so I think we're now starting to expose the gap that the DSR, followed by a budget that added no new monies, made it pretty difficult. The services are having to absorb the cost of submarine infrastructure buying into the Virginia-class system, the most expensive military capability on the planet. And on top of that, we're now saying to Defence, that's nearly $780 million of support coming out of Hyde. So I think, we're probably finding the edges of what you can do from in Hyde.
Right. And when we look at the events of the last few days, I'm really interested to get your thoughts on where to from here for Russia, for Putin and for Ukraine. What did you make of a bizarre weekend?
Look, even before the Prigozhin weekend, because it really was only a weekend, wasn't it? It seems like, we've put so much attention into it, you would think it had run for weeks. Prior to that, we were already at an incredibly critical stage for the war. So we've been waiting for the much talked about, summer offensive. And we've seen what I'd call the probing phase, where the Ukrainians are testing the Russian defences, and what they're looking for is that weakness or Russian collapse through which they're going to push some of these Western-trained formations with Abrams tanks, Challenger tanks, Leopard 2 tanks, and so on. So we were on the cusp of waiting for that breakthrough. And then over on the other side is where all the action took place with the Prigozhin incident. And what's fascinating for me is, look, first we've got to be careful not to make a hero out of this guy. He's a vile human being. I mean, Wagner was pushing, young conscripts and these prison released people, pushing them forward almost at the end of a bayonet, forcing them into an attack, using human wave attacks to achieve advantage.
And carrying out atrocities along the way.
Exactly. But the reality was militarily the most effective force on the battlefield on the Russian side, and the only force, frankly, that the Ukrainians feared. So having them sort of now taken off the table is a very significant change. And while Putin has survived, this edifice of security around him now has a big crack through it. And I think the other thing that the Ukrainians will be celebrating, what Wagner would have been really useful is this mobile reserve. If the Ukrainians penetrated, Wagner was militarily capable enough to then be sent over there to respond in a counterattack. They're off the table. So the Ukrainians will be pretty pleased about that. I think they're playing it fairly low key, but deep down, I think having the most effective military force off the table is good news for Ukraine.
It certainly is. And just finally, is there a replacement the Russians can come up with that fills the gap that the Wagner group did?
Well, I think the consequence we're going to see after this incident is I think surely the Minister for Defence and the Chief of the General Staff on the Russian side are going to have to be replaced. I mean, Wagner have exposed their lack of capability. They're deeply loyal to Putin, so that's what he will trade. But at the moment, militarily, they are just simply not capable of mounting the kind of coordinated counterattack that is going to be needed to stop Ukraine.
Retired General Gus McLachlan, appreciate your time as always.
Thanks, Kieran.